Welcome to another new video of interesting math problem on our channel Math Solutions for You. Please do like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. C is the center of the circle in the figure, and areas of the sectors shaded in gray are equal. We have to compare between the areas of the unshaded sectors, the sectors that are in white, whose areas are x and y respectively. So we have to compare between x and y, and this is a quantitative comparison question from GRE. The reason I chose to make a video on this problem is when it comes to quantitative comparison questions, in some questions you have to be really careful because what may seem to be fairly obvious from the figure may not lead you to the right answer in every case. And this is one question where from the figure, from how it's drawn and what's given, it may appear to some that it's so obvious that those two unshaded areas should be equal, right? From the figure, it's very, very apparent, it seems. But that's actually misleading. And here's why. So let me explain. If I can name these points on the circumference, let's call them P, Q, R, and S. One thing to note, and this is actually, pretty apparent from the figure that was given with this problem, that the points P and Q are not necessarily on the same straight line as C. So it means the points P, C, and Q are not on the same straight line, C being the center of the circle. And similarly, the points R, C, and S are neither on a straight line, right? So that's something that's important to note for this particular problem. Now we are given that the areas of the two shaded sectors, those are the sectors in gray, are equal. And C being the center, those sectors can be equal if and only if the sector angles are equal. So let's mark those sector angles. So I'm marking them by this light orange color, both the sector angles, and let's call them theta. We know that they should be equal because the only way the two sectors of a circle can be of equal area is if their sector angles are equal. Now let's call the sector angle for x as alpha and the sector angle for y as beta. And these two sector angles, which are marked in green and blue respectively, so the two unshaded sectors would be equal if and only if those sector angles alpha and beta are equal. So basically, we have to see if there's enough information given that leads to the conclusion that alpha and beta are equal. So from what we have so far, we have these angles alpha, beta, and then we have the two angles theta. They are taken together, they are sum of angles around the center of the circle. And it's fair to assume that the sum of those angles should be equal to 360 degrees because they are sum of angles around the point formed around a given point, which in this case is the center of the circle. So we can write this: alpha plus beta plus 2 times theta is equal to 360 degrees. And from this, the only information that we can get about alpha and beta is that alpha plus beta is equal to 360 degrees minus 2 theta, where theta is the angle of those equal sectors that are given to be equal, the ones that are shaded, right? Now, from this, can we derive the conclusion that alpha is equal to beta? Well, not necessarily, because we are only given the sum, what we can get as the sum of those two angles. But that doesn't anyway lead to the conclusion that those two quantities should be equal. So what was apparently, seeming to be obvious from the figure doesn't turn out to be so when you do a little bit of thinking. And that's why this question questions like this can be a little bit tricky because you need to apply your mind a little bit before you hurry up and choose a conclusion. So one of the things to note, and that's another way to reason out this problem, is these two equal sectors can have different orientations with respect to each other. So the one that's shown in the figure is only one possible orientation, in which, though it's not necessarily given, it may appear that those two white sectors are equal to each other, unshaded sectors. But we could pretty well have this kind of orientation of the two, equal gray sectors. And in this case, we still have the two sector angles of the gray sectors equal. So they're both equal to theta, and that makes those two gray sectors equal in area. But now it's fairly obvious that the unshaded sectors are very unequal, right? So the angle alpha is clearly much larger than the angle beta, right? And this kind of leads to different possibilities or different orientations of the equal gray sectors with respect to each other, which will accordingly modulate or change the areas of the white sectors, and not necessarily like uniformly. So one sector may get very big, the other may get very small, and that leads us to the conclusion that the relationship between the areas of those two white sectors is something that we cannot determine based on the information that's given. So the correct choice in this particular question will be option D. The relationship cannot be determined from the information given.